I'm here. I'm trying to give us some diversity, so I'm repping for the ghetto today.
Or is it that?
Well, by just putting a hood up?
By just putting a hood on, bro. It's that simple.
That's the conversation in itself, isn't it?
It's that simple.
Man,
just started a segue. There's no segue straight into it. Fucking hell. Hoodie ghetto. Really?
Yeah.
Got some questions. Yeah, got some questions.
That's the corner.
Full conditioning, man.
Outrageous.
I am one element away from ready to go.
Cool.
This is it, bro. Can't drive.
Man just did the hand creaming as well, you know, and the lip creaming, bro.
Yeah. I just shaved my head as well before this. I saw the sheen on Cass's on the last few episodes. I'm like, fuck this.
Hey, do you get bald envy? Like when you see other people's with? Is it? Oh wait, you're bald under there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The nothing under here, bro.
You're the only.
Okay.
You're the only
Let me
one.
peel the top back.
Travis, you're the only one that filmed it, bruv.
Yeah, no, I wasn't playing. I ain't getting no bad trim. I prefer no trim.
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah, I can't. Because you get a bad trim and you don't realize that there's lasting hairline damage. So then it's like, who am I now? Do you know what I mean? I'm going back further and then I'm joining humans.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard, man.
The identity crisis.
You know what I mean?
Who am I now? With that, fellas, man, this is wild. Like it's fucking dope to have you guys on and whatnot. But like it's just under the circumstances, man. It's a bit mad. I suppose kind of like just to start off, like how are we feeling? Like as in now, how are we feeling where we are being on this podcast? Having a week or so having passed when everything's intensified. Like how are we now? How are we feeling now?
I mean, I genuinely have a feeling like this time is different. Do you know what I mean? Like if I analyze it, but there is a strong heaviness as well, where, do you know what I mean? Like I go through waves of feelings of stressed out, angry, feeling like this is a good time, this needed to happen, and then back to angry, and just it's quite an intense roller coaster, if I'm honest.
It's mad. Just like the I'm gonna turn my WhatsApp off, but just in saying that, like based on what you just said, I feel like I've seen social media itself. I've seen the engine and the vehicle of social media have different emotions. Like I've seen social media be angry. I've seen social media be tired. I've seen social media be like, it's so weird, man. What about you, man?
For me, I'm in between because for a long time I've been having, I guess, fragments of conversations that are around this topic of what we're actually in right now, and have had the feeling like, this is like, how are we still here? This is not been happening. This is not happening, etc. So I'm almost feeling a sense of relief and like a weight is off my chest, because I guess this is like literally a culmination of everything I had been talking about, and then more, and all the further conversations literally brought to the front and just actually happening in the foreground. It's not like it's, and also I think as well, because we're in this scenario of a pandemic, it's literally in the fore, like there is nothing else it's not happening as a side narrative to ordinary life. This is ordinary life. This conversation right now is the norm. So for me, it's very much a relief thing, even though, you know, I mean, I feel like most change comes out of negativity anyway, so it's just more of a relief for me.
Bruce.
Oh man, like I don't even know if I'll be able to language how I'm feeling succinctly enough, but I'll try, man. Like I feel like I'm in, like everything's been compounded. Like what Trav said before we started recording, it's Kobe, pandemic, and now Black Lives Matter. And it's like I feel like I'm in the middle of an emotional Big Mac, to be honest with you, bro. And to try to process everything at the same time has been quite hard. In regard to this, the black oppression conversation that we're about to get into, like I actively, like I knew what was going on, and then I actively just took a step back just to gather myself and just kind of preserve my mental health before I started to incrementally open my mind to receiving the stuff. And I think I'm already like, I'm 3 days into taking in quite a bit, only 3 days, right? And even that, man, has been like, the cogs in the back of my mind are just spinning, and I've just like, my lens has been widened, and I'm being aware of so many blind spots that I didn't think I would be privy to. Like, and it's just, it's learning and unlearning, anger and hope all mixed in this fucking big man.
It's weird. Like I'm finding that like it only took 2 days for the whole situation to exhaust me. Like it took 2 days for this, not even for me to be tired, like for the situation to exhaust me. And it's what's mad about it is not knowing where to go for fuel when you're in that space.
Yeah. It's so intense.
No petrol stations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because of the pandemic, the timing of everything is just, it's remarkably intense. There's no going out. Our main source of communication and enjoyment in this time has been social media. Now social media is the beacon to this feeling. There is no there's no safe space.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We're literally just like drilling it. And I'm in this space of like, normally when I get like this, where I'm like, right, I've been online way too much, I'll just zone off for like 2-3 days. But I don't want to miss a thing. I don't want to miss one update. I don't want to miss one new revelation in this story. It's too much. But
the thing is, there's also like, it's weird. There's been so much happen in the same vein as your George Floyd's since the George Floyd. And it's weird because it's either that they haven't been spoken about because they're against the backdrop of mass protests, or or to be fair, I can't really think of anything else. Maybe there weren't people there filming it in the same way that they were filming the George Floyd thing. I kind of like, for me, one of the main points of my exhaustion is because, and I wanted to ask you about your ways of protest. My way of protest isn't the same as what social media might tell you the way of protesting is. So my thing is, I was speaking to David Ajala. Shout out David Ajala, man. I was talking to him just before, and I was worried about him because I saw John Boyega kind of just do his thing. And everybody, rightly so, has iconized him for that, if that makes sense, for almost potentially martyring his career for the cause. And then I look at another friend in the Melamine, I look at some other friends, and what they're doing is they are angry. They are visibly angry. They are passionate. Then I look at someone like David, whose character that I know, and his way to protest isn't that way. But he feels just as strongly about the situation, but his way to protest is a different way. He's a lot more measured. He feels, but then it's the way that he comes across and the way he chooses to deal and the way he chooses to fight and the way he chooses to protest is different. And then I started thinking, look how many people I've seen get onto people for not protesting in a way that they believe protest should be made. So I say that to say we all have our strengths, and I think what we should do is use and utilize our strengths to be able to get a message across.
Agreed.
Sometimes our strengths are not to be in the middle of a march. My way is, my best form of influence has always been one-to-one. So the amount of conversations that I have had over the last 4 or 5 days, my goodness. And that is where the exhaustion has come from, because there was almost this misconception from me that because I know what I'm talking about, when I bring it to you, it makes sense. So you're obviously going to get it. And then some of the rhetoric, some of the conversations, and some of the things I've heard back in response or in defense or in whatever, it's almost kind of like pushing something uphill and then an avalanche coming down. And you're still having to maintain that strength whilst you're pushing uphill. And that happens every single conversation. And we'll probably touch on some of the things I've heard recently. But at least what happens is at the end of the conversation, how I'm measuring my impact is how much am I, how how much have I gauged just how much what I've said has sunk in with you. And it might take 2 days or 3 days or whatever. However, you cannot now unknow the things that you know as a result of me telling you certain things. So yeah, I kind of want to ask you guys, man, like what's been your way to protest?
You know what? I'm just going to jump in there. I've just Googled protest, so I wanted some clarity on this. So what it says is noun, a statement or action expressing disapproval of or objection to something. And then the other option is an organized public demonstration. So a protest doesn't necessarily mean you need to be out on the road, right? It's how are you going to express disapproval? And to me, like, I've seen everyone react emotively, and rightly so. Fucking, let's get that straight, rightly so, right? And some people, I felt that some people do that and they make decisions that could have been wiser decisions had they just waited for certain emotions to pass, right? But that's just my take on it. And so I haven't been out on the road. I haven't really put up any black squares. I've taken a step back to try to understand this as holistically and deeply as possible before I then strategize to make a move with the platform and the skills that I have to do it in a way that resonates with me. So in terms of my protest, I'm like, I'm going to make arts that furthers the conversation and educates as best possible. So that's probably my answer to how I'm going to be protesting. But for now, it's like understand and just learn more before I open my mouth and just chat shit about shit I don't know.
So basically, if in effect, respond instead of react.
Yeah, respond as intelligently as I possibly can. Within my own time.
I think for me, like, so if I go back to my experience, let's say for the last time this Black Lives Matter conversation came up, 2016, there was a protest in central London. I was there, and I remember like my initial, like the reaction, you know, was this, the first reaction was right, nah, angry, loud, let's go. Yeah. Now, in hindsight, I think it was necessary. I think sometimes making noise and stopping, as we stopped central London, so it was literally a case of like, bro, we're stopping traffic, we're in the road. It wasn't even organized to the point where there was permission. It was an emotive decision. We're going to absolutely not be ignored anymore. And I think it all adds up. Do you see what I'm saying? I think what happened last time adds up to this time. And, you know, this time around, I haven't had the same, you know, reaction to rush out. I think there's so many factors as well. I think coronavirus is still happening. There's a lot of it in our community. There's kind of issue. There's a lot of things to think about. Do you know what I mean? So I'm kind of admirable of people who have still gone out, because it's just a testament of how passionate they are about it. But this time round, it's like, I think it's about finding your position as being a part of a body that is trying to work towards a change. I think sometimes, whether we want to admit it or not, ego does play its part, and people want to be the mouthpiece, and they want to be seen to do it. Now, I really don't want that to make it seem like as a shot or a type of, you know, mud on the picture that we're seeing now. But we all will play roles in this situation because we are members of this community. You see what I'm saying? So it's not a case of anybody having to feel like, oh, I haven't done this, so I'm not helping. I haven't done that, so I'm not helping. There's a lot of people who are not even going to be mentioned on social media because no one knows the work that they do.
Yeah, exactly.
But every Thursday and every Friday, they got their youth club or the community center that they do, and they're actually contributing on the ground level. So I don't really like the fact that the optics always get brought up of what are you doing, what are you doing. But at the same time, when you do have a platform, it is important that you use it in this conversation. Because
do you know what I say to that? Like, what I say to that is I think people forget, like, how social media has been viewed before Black Lives Matter came up. People forget what social media was like before COVID. So when COVID happened, social media became our outdoors. It became our reality. So therefore, it's almost kind of like what we're seeing on social media equals what is actually happening. So therefore, if it's not happening on social media, it's not happening. And I think that's where we're getting a lot of shit fucked up. That's where we're getting a lot of shit fucked up, just based on the fact that when you break down what social media is, typically it's been a space for people to be able to go and be egotistical. It's been a place for people to be able to go and jump on trends. That's what social media, that's what this has been for. It's been for people to be able to go on these platforms and take pictures of themselves and show how great they are doing and their highlight reels.
Yeah.
So although morally, and I'm going to talk about societal versus personal ethics later, but I suppose morally one could say that this is not the time to be doing that. But at the same time, you are saying that this is not the time to be able to use a platform for how everybody saw it being designed for in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that sentiment. I think that's actually what essentially the Black community is saying. They're saying, like, we don't have outdoors as we did because of Corona. We don't have representation in the many different forms that it should be, whether it be on the news or just representation of the community as it should be fairly, or representation in the workplace, or financial representation in the various levels of workplace, etc. So I think very much so the protest is happening as much in the digital space as it is in the physical space, in that, you know, these devices or these systems are being used for our protest. So if you're not supporting our protest, then you are against our protest, and thus you are part of the problem, not part of the solution, is pretty much how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, do you know what as well? It's like, I was just writing up some thoughts on this to potentially put it out on the ground, but I didn't put it out. So I'm like just going mining my own mind on it. And I was like, this scenario now, it's not just been like spotlighted, it's been floodlighted, because we're all stuck indoors and we're all glued to screens. So for the first time, in my limited opinion, right? So correct me if I'm wrong here, but this situation has been fully floodlighted to the entire world. It's like, it's the most visibility on a scenario like this that I've ever beheld in my life on earth.
Yeah.
And there is, as fucking horrible as this shit is, there's something hopeful about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely.
You can't miss this shit.
I saw it.
Where are you?
Before I jumped in, I came on something that said it showed the figures for how many people and how many states and how many countries have been in support of this Black Lives Matter movement since it started, like recently, this time around.
Okay,
Imagine saying this time around.
Mm-hmm,
And as a result, when the figures came in, it's the most supported civil rights movement
since the 60s, right?
No, in history.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
In history.
Wow.
So
do you know the joke is, yeah, even though you've made that statement, I'm still gonna say that it's not enough. Like, the level of support is not enough.
No, it's not.
No, you're right.
Like,
but then this is what I was gonna get to. I feel like for any change to happen, awareness is the first step, which is why social media has worked in an excellent way. Because without social media, we wouldn't have seen half of the things that we would have seen. So therefore, people can still really be covert. People can still mask certain things. The Amy Cooper thing that happened was a revelation to so many people. Even though so many of us knew what happened, have experienced this already, the Amy Cooper thing was such a revelation to some people that were like, oh my God, I'm outraged. How is she weaponizing her whiteness, X, Y, and Z? So there was a couple of things, because we spoke about ego. Trav, you mentioned ego before.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me before, it was a white lady that I was speaking to. She was like, I can't help thinking that a lot of white people at the moment are doing this out of obligation. And I thought that was interesting, because that's always going to happen. Whether people feel that they're doing it because they genuinely support it and they understand, or whether they're doing it because everybody else is doing it and now I feel obligated to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What I have to look at is the benefit of that is, for every 200 followers that you have, whether you do it out of obligation or not, you don't put that you do it out of obligation. And therefore other people are seeing and hopefully believing that this is something that you as my influencer or you as my friend care about. And the more of that I see from friends and friends and friends, even if my belief system is different, the more of the people whose opinions that I value around me are all agreeing to X, then that same sheep mentality turns into something that I now have to explore.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one, I guess, I think it's more of a perspective thing, because so this, yeah, I know we keep saying like this time around, because it's like it comes in waves, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I guess the one that you were a part of in 2016, Trav, was like, that was like the I guess the most recent like real movement, like black push towards, look, like we need to be recognized, etc. And very much now everything that's happening, at least in the UK with regards to the protests, I feel like it's still piggybacking off of that protest. I feel like that's just become relevant again, if you know what I mean. So it's like we're picking up from that momentum, not even starting again. But either way, the perspective that I've sort of had on all of this issue and the education and the awareness and whatnot is that the reason why I feel so so at peace this time, regardless with the ways, the how, and the COVID and the lockdown and the social media and the fact that, yeah, there is actually a lot of buy-in from a lot of people from outside of the Black community. The reason why I feel so much at peace is actually because of a revelation that came to me this time around, because I feel like I've always been a part of and believed in the narrative that, and which was pretty much what I saw in 2016, which was that, you know, it is on us to educate people and to fight for our rights and to X, Y, Z. And then it got to this time and I was like, you know what, I just realized this is not even my problem. Like it's legit not my problem.
Facts.
This is a white problem, and they need to educate themselves, and they need, and like I feel like it came to me like in a moment, and I was like, oh my God, this is not even my problem. And that was where all of my stress left, because I said, you know what, I don't have to share anything, I don't have to post anything, even though I have, because this is actually not my problem. And the way that this has been mediated en masse in a synchronized-ish way, because of, you know, how quickly, and because most of it came off the back of George, it was very much like, yeah, see, this isn't my problem at all. Like the solution is actually on you.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've spent more of my time just looking at sort of the white people that I do follow and the white friends that I do have, to just be able to be there to help them if they need help in any shape, way or form, or if they are clearly not taking any note of what's happening in society, then just letting them know, okay, cool, like this is apparent that you're not seeing what needs to happen and you are the change that needs to happen. So like, we're either gonna have to part ways here, or, you know what I mean?
Through this season, I think I've unfollowed and blocked more people than I've ever at any time. Because now on a real one, because like you say, it's not my job to teach you a thing at this point. Like, if you've not seen countless times where, man, it's either I've posted something or conversations have been happening in this world, you have chosen to not see it. So if you're now hearing the outroar and the frustration at this point, and you don't know where to go or where to look, then I've got to say, maybe this is the end of the road for us, because I'm not going to consume any like ignorant content now in this sensitive time where social media is the feed, it's the drip feed of everything that's going on in the world. Everybody's inside. This is the one thing that we're all tuned in. So if you're going to be giving ignorant content, I've got to say bye, because this affected me a lot more than it normally does.
Do you know what I'd say to that, though? Do you know what I'd say to that? It's it's interesting because I have a slightly different view. My view is the same in the fact that it is not our responsibility to teach. However, that is, for many of us, that is our form of protest.
No, like, I hear that. So protest as you see fit.
What I mean by that is, there is enough information out there. There's enough information out there, especially for you to get your starter kit, if that makes sense. Your Black Lives Matter starter kit information on. There's more than enough information out there. However, there is a part of me that I suppose at the moment I see from a different point of view, which is from a humanistic point of view. I'm looking at this moment in time, especially with social media, be in a space where you put a foot wrong and your neck is getting ripped out, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's almost this thing that's kind of like, at the moment, if I do this, then I'm arguing against. If I do this, it's almost kind of like I've seen it be like, who are you to say this? This is not your thing. This is not X, Y, and Z. Blah 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 blah. So, for example, and rightly so. But for example, I saw a list that almost had to tell people, white people, what they weren't allowed to do, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I've seen one of those.
So no chanting "I can't breathe" because it's not your struggle. Yeah, no putting the black fist up in the air. Like, there was a lot of that kind of stuff happening. Do you understand what I'm saying? Telling them what they're not allowed to do. However, when you're learning something, you're looking around, and if I'm left to learn independently, I'm looking around and seeing actions, and I'm seeing all of these people doing this action, and therefore, for me, my education is this, because no one's told me any different. So my education is this. Yeah. So you're almost kind of like, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. And if I stay still because I'm scared of
I'm also damned.
I'm complicit. I'm complicit.
Yeah.
So for me,
you know,
go on.
Yeah, sorry, just to add to that, I'm just saying, like, I do feel it for the well-intentioned allies, right? Because I understand that the journey of allyship is one of trial and error. Yep. Like, your heart's in the right place, you want to do the work, you start doing it, and then you do some shit that's wrong, and someone's going to be like, yo, actually, no. And so, like, yeah, I just wanted to flag that, because I've got loads of friends that I truly believe, from what I understand of them and their back catalogue of work and their purpose and values, they're true allies, and they're out here trying to do the work, but they're tripping up. And I'm like,
however, I just listened to something on that, and they made the sickest point ever. They said, as a man, I may be fighting for the feminist movement, if that makes sense. And as a result, I'm not doing it necessarily because it's my struggle, but I'm doing it because it affects those that I love. And justice for those people. I want well for those people, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I want something that's fair. I want something that's, so as a white person, what you kind of need to be willing to do is make those mistakes and then correct them. Because at the moment, we can't afford to have you not make those mistakes through fear. Because there are people that are making decisions. Yeah, there are people that
I get that. But like, sorry, sort of contrary to your point, because I know sort of, I guess, one example, just to give context so everyone understands. Like I saw, for example, you were sharing like a load of books that actually quite well explain the Black struggle and whatnot on your story. And for me, I'm very much a feminist in the sense that I just believe in equality for all people. I feel like everybody has the right to equality. So whether that be in terms of race, gender, sex, it doesn't matter to me in that capacity. So I'm automatically a feminist. Possibly because I'm Black and I have this struggle. So how am I going to have my own struggle and then try and oppress people for their differences? But in doing that, I don't feel like I've ever had a woman or a feminist like actively educate me in how I can support. I simply offer my support at any opportunity that arises and just be mindful.
But that's my point. That is exactly my point. That's
you know what? No,
go on.
Just to add to that point, I have had a conversation with kind of like a feminist person and asked that question, like, so what exactly is it? And a lot of the time, the answer tends to be along the lines of what we're saying to, you know, our allies at this point. In some cases, where it's like, do the work, do the research, like, and not in a disrespectful, flippant, dismissive way. There are things you can do. Like, if you said to me that, oh, you wanted to put up a wall, right, and you didn't know how to do it or whatever, you're asking me how to do it, and I'm like, I don't know, but I want to help. I'm gonna look into how I do that. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to tell me where, but I'm gonna do what I need to do because the intention is to get to this place. Mm-hmm. So with this conversation, when we're talking to our, you know, white people that want to help and stuff like that, you have to understand we're at a place as a community where we have been trying to get you to understand for a long time. So there is a lot of fatigue, which means that my ability to now do what I was already trying to do years ago, I don't have the same patience.
Totally.
So now I'm saying to you, big man, if this is what you're on, go over there and look for it. Then
My
come back
only
to me
thing,
once
my only thing with that is, if they choose not to, it's almost kind of like, maybe this is my warped way of thinking about it, but if they choose not to, it's me that continues to suffer. Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, I hear you. I definitely hear you. But I feel like, do you know what it is? Do you know, like when you're, I guess in a sense, yeah, I'm being stubborn. All I can think of is my upbringing and more the Caribbean side than the Af side. But like all I can think of is like that sort of trial by fire type of scenario where I'm like, look, you need to learn, innit? Like, it's not for me. This is your lesson to learn. I totally get you.
If you do trial by fire and end up setting the whole village on fire, yeah. Imagine. So, for example, I believe that majority of the people that are out there spraying on people's buildings and looting and all of the rest of it have cruel intentions. But imagine the ones that did go out and educate by visual and say, shit, this is what protest looks like. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and spray on Starbucks. I'm going to, however, not being aware that the I suppose how it comes back is that it makes us look worse, if that makes sense. So
totally.
So somebody had to educate. Somebody had to educate and say, this is not the way you do this. Does that make sense? This is the way you do this. And my thing is, if I leave you to create this by yourself, just like having a child, because it is very much like that. And the reason I say just like having a child is because in some of the conversations I've had, I've sat there and I've literally thought to myself, if I ask you about animal rights, if I ask you about gay rights, if I ask you about feminism, if I ask you about climate change, if I ask you about any of this stuff, your answers are so fucking nuanced. They're so detailed.
Yeah.
How do you know so little about a struggle that is so important? That maybe if we are allowed to compare, eclipses, if not all of those.
Yeah.
How do you not know about this stuff? Yeah. But then there is a part of me that says, hold on a second. How do I know about Napoleon? How do I know about Churchill? How do I know?
Yeah, of course.
Right? So then I look at how I got that information, and it's because it's here. It's just in front of me, yeah? And when you got, and it's weird because I remember, hold on, bear with me. I remember my mum saying when they was younger, they don't teach Black history in school and all of the rest of it, yeah? And it's weird because I understood it and I thought it was shit, but it went over my head in a way that if they don't teach Black history in school, then they don't teach white history in school. Yeah, because
man, that's so bang on, and I've never thought of it like that.
So for me, what I'm looking at is your victories, the great battle of wits, and all of that kind of stuff. I'm looking at your Churchills, and I'm looking at all of your successful battles. I'm looking at what makes Britain great.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Yeah. However, when I'm looking back, I'm not seeing about any of the injustices.
Yeah, of course.
And then even when you do look at that information and you look for
it's still biased.
Hold on, unless the information is given to you by, for example, someone of color that can tell you this is the authentic, you're gonna start reading information like in the 1600s, travelers, not slave owners, travelers went around the world and they settled. They didn't invade, they settled. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's all of this stuff.
I get it, but then you know what? Yeah, this is where it's. You know what it is? This is almost like the Bible. You know, like how they'll have certain scriptures or verses, and they'll say certain things, and then different denominations of church exist because they've taken the same words and understood them. And so like where you said like when you were talking to David earlier, and he was saying different people need to use their powers. To me, I'm like, this is a moment where people need to use their powers because, for example, with the Churchill and the Napoleons and the that's because that education exists in the school curriculum, and that the process of getting the Black education, the Black history or parts of Black history or whatever we deem as a community to be important that everyone who goes through schooling in Britain or English-speaking countries should know. there are people in stations who that's actually falls into the remit of their power. They can make that change. And that's the way it needs to come down. Because for example, if you educated every single white person you knew from now until the end of your life, you still wouldn't scratch the surface on on the work that actually needs to be done. So that's why I'm like, okay, cool. This is actually you guys' problem. Like, you guys need to take this.
Yeah, but now what you're talking about is the level that these people are at. For example, every white person that we know, every white person that we're speaking to on social media changes their stuff, but they don't have any influence. They don't affect anything on other than an entry level to their job or to whatever the system is or whatever the situation is. My thing is, right now, the narrative seems to be very much about this individual white person changing the way they think, and this individual white person.
Which is not my thingy. I'm like, that is not the problem at all. The problem is at such a high level, which is why I'm like, no, guys, this is your problem. And when all white people need to do in this scenario, in my opinion, is to accept that this is our problem. Because when they all accept it's their problem, they turn around and they face the white people that actually work upwards. And then the problem transcends up the levels to where the solution needs to come from. And then it comes back down. Yeah, and it's not even necessarily that the highest white person creates the change. It's just a step where the highest white person then has to address that there's a problem. And that is where the black people should then be consulted.
One kind of thing, do we need to start so low down? For example, if we start at corporate level, if we start, they're still accessible because these Nikes and these Adidas's and all of these companies are listening to us, if that makes sense, right? To a degree. So they're accessible. We don't have to go to them through the white person that we know on the ground floor. Yeah. Let me land for a second, yeah?
Sorry, go.
My thing is, they are the ones that fund government campaigns and blah blah blahs and
yeah.
So for me, I'm kind of like, if we get a change on that level, on a corporate level, is there not more chance of us getting a change at a higher level? And the reason I say that is because something dawned on me, and I said, do you know how much integrity you are asking for every white person to have to be able to sacrifice what is a personal ethic for a societal ethic? And I say this, we look at societal ethics. Stealing is wrong, that's a societal ethic. However, let me be in a position where I've been evicted from my house. I've got a 6-month-old and they haven't been fed in a day. I'm not going to think twice about grabbing that orange from the greengrocer to be able to feed my child, if that makes sense. That's a personal ethic, right? If I go for a job interview and I get this job because I am male, and it comes to me that the woman that was next to me was probably even better suited for the role, but in my opinion, or not in my opinion, it comes to my attention that I've got this job because I am male, right? I'm looking at the situation saying, I'm here because I needed this job. I'm here because my personal ethics, to further my personal ethics, it helps me feed my kids better and blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. You're asking for me to have the integrity to turn around and say, I'm not going to accept this job because she was better for it. Whereas what I'm saying is, systematically, that decision should be taken out of a white person's hand in the beginning. So they shouldn't have do you understand what I'm saying? They shouldn't have the autonomy to turn around and say, I'm going to put my privilege to one side for the and sacrifice my personal ethic for a societal ethic. What I'm saying is,
do you know what the thing is? Okay.
Yeah, I want to say, like, so what you're basically saying is they shouldn't have the privilege that they have in the first place. But that's clearly, that shouldn't be the case. But now it is the case. How your point was, how do we remove that? You're saying go up the corporate ladder. But the fact is, the corporate ladder and, the way this supremacy and oppression has been set up, it's so interwoven. I don't think going up is more beneficial as opposed to going down. And when I say go down, I'm talking education and a whole generation of people that feel different. Because within white people right now, you have a commonality for them to be like, oh, my granddad's racist. They don't look at themselves and their granddad of the same mind. And when they become the grandparents, they won't be the racist grandparent. Some will be like, yeah, my granddad's racist, and that's why I'm racist. That's, you know what I mean? But I don't think going up is the best way. I think going down and getting a generation, like, for example, you see the protest today, it's a very diverse protest.
100%,
Globally. Do you see what I'm saying? It's different. when that era
Maybe,
becomes
maybe it's this.
grandparents.
Maybe it's this. Maybe it's the fact that one potentially solves a problem for today and one solves a problem for tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
I think that's what it is.
Because at the moment, what I'm looking at is right now where even from a marketing point of view, from companies, it's no longer about demographic. Yeah, it's no longer about, for example, it's less, about where you live, your age, your marital status, and it's more about psychographics. It's more about what you think, what your values are, all of those kind of things there, right? So therefore, the consumer has become so much more important to the brand in terms of how it functions from a corporate level. So for me, at this point in 2020, the consumer has never had more power in terms of the way a brand operates. And this is me maybe coming from a business background. So I'm kind of like, if you affect that, because these are the ones that fund government this.
Yeah, and everything else that then,
But if you affect that, if we can affect that, if we can infiltrate that, you almost fast track the solution.
100%.
So someone tweeted this, what's going to bring about change? How's this going to happen to Akala, right? And he responded, he said, once we develop the ability to affect things on a massive way financially and also with military defense and not a moment sooner. Now, he's obviously alluding to Africa's position in all of this.
Yeah.
Because, as far as the worldscape goes, as a black people, we are the generation. Sorry, we are a people without a home, essentially, because as much as there is this, when people look down on Americans for not knowing where your roots are, I've seen Caribbean people say that to Americans, and I laugh because it's literally the same distance almost, and it's also just a different stuff. Because Africa is our base, right? So, and you see how Africa is mistreated on a global scale in any real kind of conversation, even the way our leaders are presented. People talk about them as, they're all crooks, they're all scammers.
And that's a white narrative, though, yeah.
Of course it is, but we're talking about the power of influence that Africa has versus the rest of the nations. So you look at our position in the world in that way, and then it's like, we are the ones where our home is messed up, and we're kind of scattered across different places. Whereas Asian continent respected, and Europe, etc., and around the world, you start to see that there is a connection, a correlation between having a base country and your
of
position.
Course, yeah. And your base country is either one of high esteem, or, for example, in terms of like China, they're feared.
Exactly.
So they're respected via fear and their financial impact because they're well invested in business, etc. Well, I'll tell you the difference.
It's not them individually that.
It's not individually. It's not individually. Yeah.
And this is what I'm trying to say. If we're talking about fear, I suppose we have to be,
bro.
We have to be forensically articulate, because at the moment, a lot of what's happening with our people at the moment is out of fear.
It is, but this is what I'm saying. There's a lot to it, because basically, so I went to Ghana last Christmas, and it was a party trip, but it was also a very educational trip, and it showed me a lot of the direction that Africa as a continent is moving towards. It showed me it almost tied all the knots between what Gaddafi was trying to do, what Nigeria is trying to do, and almost in competition with Ghana. They had people I cannot tell you how many African Americans were there, how many Caribbeans were there. Ghana is basically paving the way to be the re-entry point for black people in the whole diaspora. They're doing they know that previous African leaders have not done their due diligence in making sure that everything that has happened and has been done to these various nations, whether it be financially or whatnot, has been undone. But the current president of Ghana, he's I think they're banks, or they still receive some type of financial aid from France and whatnot. All of that's ending, he said, within his presidency, because they intend for it to be a completely independent, because they have their independence. And yet they're still financially tied. It's weird stuff like that, but they're actually actively making those steps to
so you mean fair from on a government scale, or on a continental scale even.
Fully, and that's what Africa is going for. Hence Gaddafi, hence why he died, etc. But with regards to how business works and stuff, I guess in that sense, Africa has the cheapest available labor out of all countries and continents, left. So where China currently make everything, especially with this virus, soon that's not going to be the case because they keep obviously raising their rates year on year. So soon it's only going to be affordable for all of your Nikes, your Adidas, your whether it be clothes or whatever, for them to get it made in Africa because that's going to be the cheapest labor available. Except Africa's already aware of that, so they're setting up their government structures to take advantage of that, for it to be an empowering position, not just a position of, well, now this is how we get paid. We get paid by the West to make their products, etc. And I feel like once that transition begins to happen, and we've got a lot of money coming our way, and we have actual financial independence from these stakeholders like France and like Britain, etc., then you will see the problem that the world will have. And that's why I think things like this are coming to the fore now, because
100%.
they're realizing that in 10 years from now, 5 years from now, if their actions today do not look amazing, they are going to be in trouble, bruv.
Yeah.
The people ain't gonna forget. This is not the part of history that you can forget or you can write incorrectly and misreference and and it gets forgotten. No, we record everything. This is documented.
You know what's so wild about everything you're saying? Do you know, like, at one stage, the UK, the British Empire, forget the States, the British Empire owned 1/4 of the world, if that makes sense. Yeah? Do you know this? And I found this out as well, yeah? All right, so we know, for example, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because somebody I was speaking to tried to compare what happened with slavery and the slave trade to the Holocaust, yeah?
This always comes up, bruv. I'm like, are you out of your flipping mind?
Don't worry, I've got this. But my thing was, one, you don't like, there's a 4-year period and a 200 and something year period, if that makes sense.
No, it's to this day.
However, one thing I did say to them is, I said, let's play a game of synonyms, yeah? And I said, if I say Jewish, what are some of the associations that come to your mind, right? And they went through Auschwitz and they went through Holocaust and whatnot. But then what happened is the narrative slowly started to change as they went through the timeline. And you started to see words like community come up. You started to see words like wealth and rich come up. You started to see all of that kind of stuff. So for me, one of the things I noticed, is at some point, the Western world said, we are horrified and absolutely ashamed of what we did, Here are reparations. Go and build your communities. Go and rebuild your infrastructures. Go and do all of this stuff, And then you compare it, and this is what my words were to her, then you compare it to the slave trade. And when that was abolished, our reparations was our freedom. However, the monetary reparations were paid to the slave masters for loss of property, right? So at this point now, you're kind of looking at, okay, not only were we however many years behind, because we weren't allowed to build our communities, we weren't allowed to learn to read, we weren't allowed to do all of this kind of stuff, but you are now paying the people for loss of property, paying the people that invaded the country for loss of property. This is where it gets, for me, this is where it gets silly. I looked at how much, because I remember watching a documentary years ago, how much they were paid in terms of per slave that they lost, and in total, the bill came to 20 million, right? 20 million at that point equates to 16 billion today. 16 billion today. Let me land. 16 billion today. And the last installments of these payments were made as late as 2015 with taxpayers' money.
Mad.
Then you fast forward and you think, hold on a second. So pause. Not only have they done all of this damage and we don't have anything to rebuild our communities, but then what you've done is you've allowed them to be able, with all of this money, to go and fund the Bank of England, go and fund these docks, go and fund the Houses of Parliament, all of this kind of stuff there. And then on top of it, all you've done is basically allow them to rebuild these institutions so that we can turn overt racism into covert racism.
Preach.
This came up because this girl said to me, forget history for a moment,
A fave. That's a fave.
You can't start like that. You can't start like that.
That's a fave.
Man said, forget history. That's like starting a sentence. Like, I'm not racist or anything, but ruined it.
Oh God.
So like, my thing is this. So this came to the fore, and this is another question. This is something that I don't hear many people speaking about, and you could argue that this is not the time to speak about it, but I want to wrap with you guys, Say in this ideal world, this crazy world, the Western world did realize, shit, like we fucked up, and we're gonna give you your financial monetary reparations.
Oh,
Do
okay.
you feel that the black community would use it properly?
Okay. So in this, who is the black community? Are you talking about just the black community as in the diaspora, us here in the West, or are you talking about the whole, like Africa included, motherland included? Like, where's the divide? Because I say the reason why I'm asking is because in terms of what I have seen firsthand, I am aware of the fact that the African nation is being built or rebuilt. Sorry.
Yeah.
So if it was all inclusive, then I do feel like there would be some form of leadership that would be Africa centric.
But would it include Africa though? Any reparations?
This is what I'm saying.
I don't think it does.
I don't think it would. I don't think it would, because it's almost, it's you're basing it on the people that were brought from to, if that makes sense.
Of course, yeah, but I mean, like along the coast, at least in Ghana, like there are.
But I think reparations was initially mentioned on the basis of you being a slave, 40 acres and a mule, and that type of rhetoric. So it wasn't. It never included Africa in that way. I don't believe.
So if it was just outside of Africa, then I would say honestly that at this particular moment in time, no, the reparations would not be put to good use because our community lacks leadership.
I disagree.
I would say on a community level that we don't have strong leadership. For example, in terms of historically, we had like Martin Luther and Malcolm X at a point, and even though they're their narratives, their approaches were different, I would say the only person that just off the top of my head stands in that type of position is Akala. In terms of the popularity and standing in that kind of position. And I don't think everyone would turn to his opinion in the same way that people actually did look up to and listen to Martin Luther. So that's why I mean, this has been a problem of mine within the narrative of our community for a while. And that's because I think the benefit of being an African-American is that it was almost assumed that you were the descendant of a slave, and thus you almost own this African-American identity because your history is the same. Whereas us here in the UK, a lot of us are immigrants, not even descended of slaves. Some come from the Caribbean. Some people are born here.
No, but I don't know. Yeah, but you're missing Jamaica. Like the Caribbean is just another place where we were taken from Africa.
Yeah, but what I mean is there's a lot of people who migrated here of their free will from Africa, who are part of the black community, but then lumped in with Caribbeans, lumped in with people who would have been enslaved here and thus be the descendant of slaves, etc. So there's a lot of different people who are called the black community, who culturally are very different, interest-wise are very different, roots are very different, and they're not going to be thinking the same way. Like my mind, I'm half Nigerian, half Trinidadian. My mind is very Africa focused. Like I'm very much like, this is where my people come from. So if I need a solution or I want to think in that kind of way, I'm always trying to reference backwards, or not backwards, but back to that mainland to be like, okay, this is how we solve it, or this is where I should be headed or whatever. But not everybody thinks like that. I know a lot of Caribbean people who tell me to this day, I'm not African. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know where to go with that conversation. But
what was you going to say?
My thing is, I don't believe that if reparations were paid, that it's just going to be squandered, because reparations on that scale is very huge, right? As a community, you got to understand, we don't come from money. We don't have a relationship with money. So a lot of the time, our starts in life are based on survival. A lot of decisions and the stuff we make have always been about survival. Hence, even modern day parents will be like, yo, go to uni, be a doctor, lawyer, because these are jobs where you can't lose your footing. You'll always be able to make a way. The whole ethos of it is survive at all costs.
Yeah.
Money allows freedom of thought. So now, straight away, financial pressures don't dictate your movements. It doesn't dictate your mindset or your outlook. And that weight is a weight that we carry naturally by default. So when you look at, say, you know, how white kids that you kind of may have seen on TV or whatever, how they grow up and the stuff they do, you think, rah, boy, look at white people. They just do madness because they're not surviving. Sometimes they're just living. So whatever they want to think about or whatever, they just go with. We haven't seen that in ourselves. We don't even know what that would be, what we'd look like under those circumstances. Do you see what I'm saying? We have a very down-to-earth approach to life because of the fact that survival is like number one all the time. Whereas, like, an example of it is, you know, say your grandparents pass away in a black family and a white family. For a white family, that's a big payout for grandkids and everyone underneath. For us, that's getting money together. Like, we're carrying up a lot of ways rather than passing down. So when you talk,
even with what you just said, even with what you just said, there is the argument that financial literacy.
This is what I was going to say.
That's where I was going to go as well.
You might as well go. Say what you're going to say.
Yeah, no. So that's my worry. I think, Travis, you made a beautiful point there, and I totally agree. There's been that weight, right? But my worry is that if all of a sudden, it's just like lottery winners, right? If you haven't been trained in wealth management or wealth growth, or even just money management in general, because you've been living month to month, paycheck to paycheck, when that P floods in, you're going to be overwhelmed and you're not going to necessarily know what to do, and you can fuck up the whole thing. So I mean, that's a worry, but that we can mitigate against that if, again, leadership around nuanced areas like finance stepped up and started educating people.
I was actually going to say that that a lot of the financial literacy that we're seeing at the moment is the result of generational wealth. So it's the result of me teaching you how I've run my business, and me teaching you does that make sense? Me teaching you where to put your money, to invest in ISAs or to do this or whatever the situation is. So a lot of it, yes, whilst I have the money in, just like we're asking the white people to do now, we should just go and learn about some shit, if that makes sense. There will still be many mistakes along the way. However, there's one thing that I realized that we have discounted. This is a theory that came to me a long time ago. And it's the fact that, and it's the part that history plays in the way that we manage things at the moment and in terms of identity and representation. So I know that my family lived long. I only had to go back 3 or 4 generations to be able to find out like my tribe name and all of the rest of it around the slavery time. Yeah. Most people don't have that luxury. But if you ask a Rupert or a Tarquin to be able to trace their family history back, they can go back as long as they want, and it might take them a little time, but they can find out based on lineage and based on documents that this was my father's blah 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 was the Duke of this, Duchess of that, whatever the situation is. Yeah. What tends to happen with us is because there is a wall at 400 years, if that makes sense from now. What happens is we can't go any further back. There's a reason I'm saying this. It's because as a tribe, you were allowed to keep your tribe name, but you were not allowed to keep your surname. Yeah, so you can find out what tribe you belong from, and the reason why, because tribes was a form of eugenics. It was, if you want a Fulani, you're gonna have to pay top dollar for these because they're smart and they're strong. But if you want an Awasanya, you can get them because they're lazy and they're weak and whatever the situation is. Yeah, so we were allowed to keep those. The reason I say that is because if you then fast forward 400 years, if I ask you now, where are you from? You don't tell me where you were born. You tell me where your parents are from. We use landmarks to be able to display certain things. Yeah. So we go back as far as we can remember. At the 9 times out of 10, it's our grandparents or our parents. They're from this place. Yeah. So when you use that to be able to confirm your identity and to represent yourself. So when you now say, "Who am I?" and you can only go far, and your history begins, because that's where it's documented. Your history begins for a lot of us at slavery. That becomes your identity. When you then turn around and look for landmarks, so if I'm over here and I need to get back from where I'm from, I'm kind of like, all right, I passed the bagel shop, I passed the BP petrol station, I did X, Y, and Z. With white people, they can turn around and what they've been taught is Churchill did this and did. So all of their landmarks are positive landmarks. Our landmarks are civil rights movement, Black Panthers, blah, 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 blah. They're all around oppression, right? So now what happens is our identity is mixed up with this, with slavery. So we turn around and say, well, if I know this about myself and the whole world treats us like this, they think that I'm a slave. So what is the best way for me to be able to emit value? Yeah, and that is outward. That is with the new car, with the chain, with the latest trainers, with X, Y, and Z, because it's the quickest way to be able to give you a message that I am not the slave that you think I am. It's the quickest way to admit to you that I am a person of value without getting the chance to speak to you. So you don't instantly look at me like this. It gives me a voice in my community. It gives me a voice in your community a lot of the time, right? So this is my worry. My worry is when we do come into money, what we end up doing is using it to prove that we are not who our history dictates we are.
Do you know what? Yeah, I hear that. I feel like it's on top of that, right? And also mixed in with what Ruben was saying, because we do not have financial literacy right across the community. If we then had that money right across the community, and we don't have all of those different various businesses set up to keep that money circling within our community, if white racist people were smart, or rather the white racist people in power were smarter, they would have already given us our reparations because we would have paid it back already.
It would have come out of the community as
we would have paid it back already. Us having these conversations now is the only way we'd even slow it down, because I can almost promise you, because that is not how we operate. And there's no way that, I mean, like, obviously, you know, the gut reaction would be, all right, cool, I'm going to buy a Benz, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that. Cool. And then that wave dies down, and then maybe there's a bit of splash out partying, and then that wave dies down. But then, do you know what will get you the most? It would be the people from outside of our community who are then going to be our advisors, who are going to advise us to make moves that benefit them and their communities. And we'll be gullible to it.
Yeah. Have you heard of the theory t-shirt to t-shirt in 3 generations?
No. We say teacher.
T-shirt to t-shirt in 3 generations. So the idea is we are born in nothing but a t-shirt. Really basic clothes. We don't have any money. We don't have anything. So we work really, really hard to be able to gain these things, this lifestyle, these things, these riches, or whatever it is. So now our next generation can wear suits, and they are making good decisions and whatnot. But because we're not teaching them the financial and the value of money and all of the rest of it, they squander the money, and their children are back in t-shirts. And this theory was supposed to be kind of across. It wasn't necessarily a black theory. Yeah, but I can see it. It's weird. And these are worries that I have. These are almost worries that I have. And it's weird because I'm grateful to be surrounded by a community of people, because I don't think it's as bad as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. At least for what I can tell in my London community among the people that I know, because everybody seems to be a lot more savvy than their generation before then, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know how it's happened, but the people that I speak to, I was talking to my brother, the problem he's giving me is, bro, my tax bracket is wild at the moment. These are the problems that he's giving me, right? These are beautiful problems to have. Last night I had a meeting with my friend. He's created his own company as a developer. His day rate is £450 a day, and he works 40 hours a week. So he's on about 10 to 12 grand a month. We are having conversations about all of these kind of things, but these are not conversations that were happening before. I remember seeing one of my friends and seeing him, the first time I'd seen him in years, he was on Home Under the Hammer. When I spoke to him later on, he was 21 properties up. He was just buying, flipping, selling, buying, flipping. He's now responsible for half the dorms in terms of university campus and all of those kind of things there. So the way that we are wired in terms of our different communities, there are those of us that know now that I don't need this watch or this particular pair of trainers to have which is positive. I wanted to ask you, namely Trav, but then at the same time, Shay and Rubes, I want you to think about this as well. It was just a question. I had a conversation with a girl from my salsa group, and basically it was if I was bringing up a boy child at the moment, what advice would I give him in terms of his engagement with police? Mad. And the reason I say that is because I was watching something and they were talking about do you show them respect if they don't show you respect? I heard mothers giving their sons advice to be able to make a phone call and keep the speaker on, and then say everything you're doing just so that it can be heard. Yeah, I've heard ask permission to give the officer what he's just asked you for. I've heard all of these kind of things, if that makes sense. Like, and then they end with, do everything you can to get back to me. So I'm kind of like, I don't know how I would respond, if that makes sense. Like to my son in that situation, because on the one hand, I'm teaching him everything about his own value, like his life. I'm teaching him everything about his own value and about how to respect himself and about how he's a king and about all of this stuff. But on the other hand, I'm saying to you, even if they commit the most heinous crimes to you and treat you in the worst way, it's still yes sir, no sir, free badge.
Do you know what it is, right? There is no way to teach your son how to react in those situations, but what you try to do is try to prepare your son for this world by providing him with a set of inbuilt instincts that allow him to read situations. Because like with, for example, I'm into boxing quite heavily, so a lot of my analogies will be boxing related. But I would never prepare a fighter for a fight by saying, go in there and do this combination, you're going to knock him out. What I would do is prepare him with a boxing IQ that allows him to think for himself in those moments, so that he knows what to do without me specifically saying this combo, that combo. So with a situation like that, with my son in it, in the way that I try to emulate what my dad told me in those situations is box clever, which is don't aggravate a situation that didn't need to be aggravated if it is in your control. However, if you know that you've managed a situation to the best of your ability in a way that that you haven't aggravated it, survive. Do you see what I'm saying? Because those are that's the law of it at the moment. Because whilst it might be a case of saying, listen to what they're saying and do what they say, cool, that might get you killed. So then now it's a case of, you're going to have to, if you need to do whatever you need to do to get out of that situation in life. Do what you do.
I feel like for me, as you said that, Trav, I was trying to think, I can't really remember my dad talking me through like how to handle the police. I guess he must have said, like he tells a lot of stories. I'm sure he's told me like the odd one or two stories about himself, which are like lessons in listening, if you know what I mean. But ultimately, I feel like from my experience, a lot of how to deal with police as a black boy, because I was a young man at the time, was coming from like American films and, parody situations, because they didn't do a lot of serious ones then. It was more like a joke, but very much true to reality and stuff. But for me, in terms of my kids, and I guess this is again with the Africa-centric mentality that I now have, is I really want my kids to have different problems. Like, I don't want them to be color-based. And I know I do live here right now, so that would be the issue. But ultimately, to say to my son, I mean, I really don't know what I would say, because I would never want them to feel, even though I know it to be true, I would never want them to feel like they're going to be treated unjustly. They're going to have, because that's exactly the experience I've had, actually, now that I think of it. I'm not even a lawbreaker like crazy. I definitely did break the law a lot as a young man, but like not extreme crimes, if you know what I mean. Normal teenager stuff. But like, I used to get pulled over for all sorts of crap. Even if I rode my bicycle on the pavement, bruv. The police would pull me over.
I got pulled over for that as well.
I was like, bruv, I've seen white kids ride these roads raw. What are you talking about? I didn't even know this was against the law. Man's like, yeah, it's against the law. You need to get in the road. I was like, but I don't have a helmet. Is that not also against the law? Like, it was mad.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what's mad? Random fact, I've never been stopped by the police. No stop and search.
Ever.
No stop while I'm driving.
That's
not one time.
Wild.
Bro.
That's wild. Bro,
Crazy.
do you know what's crazy? Yeah, and I wanted to touch on these as well. Some of these aggressions that we have, that like I feel like are inbuilt, and I thought they were only me in the beginning. Like the way that I feel, even if I'm legit, when a police car is driving behind
always,
bro,
always.
The nerves.
No, but the thing is with that driving one, bruv. So like Cass, you know I started driving quite late in it, but Cass was quite early. And I remember, I'll never forget the time we was coming back from Luton, bro.
Yeah.
And me and Cass in the car chatting, gassing a whole ride from Luton. Back then, to me, that was far, innit? It's not that far. But in my mind, we were driving forever. Chatting, laughing, blah, 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 blah. Cool. Cass is the man. Literally pulls into the ends, bruv. We done did motorway, country, but we got to the ends, instantly pulled over. And the way Cash wrapped this guy up, you know, even now I would be more worried for you the way you was talking to this guy.
Oh, snap.
But it was just a case of like, he was like, yeah, cool, you've got my license. Like, it's like Cass presenting with his license and then he was asking him about his insurance. He's like, yeah, but you run my stuff. I've got insurance. Why are you suggesting that I get a different insurance? Are you happy that you see my license? Cool, I'm good to go, innit? I'm not under arrest now. Cool. And I was like, bruv, this is a cop, you know, blood.
Yeah.
And he's a white one, like,
bro.
I was like, because, yeah, we're out of the car, but I actually live right here. Like, I don't even need to get back in the car. Like, I'm done. Like, this journey's over for me. It was mad, bruv.
Do you know what else it was as well? The reason why, I'll give some context to this, yeah? This girl said to me, she was talking to me about her racist experience, and she's from a Latin country, but she's white, yeah? Mm-hmm. And she was basically saying that her mum had some situation, and it was basically because of her language and all of the rest of it. So I was kind of like, first of all, do you really think that one racist experience is equal to another racist experience, right?
Bruv.
Number two is she said, what I did, and what I suggest you do is I got intelligent on them. I went investigator. So I did all of my research, and then when I did all of my research, I went into their office. But I was smart about it. I put my hair back in one. I put some lipstick on. I dressed like them and X, Y, and Z. And at that point, I was listening, and I was just like, I want to find out if the penny's going to drop whilst you were speaking.
Yeah, I can't look like them.
What person in the world can outfit as a white person by putting their hair back, putting some lipstick on and dressing? And do you want to know the funniest thing? I would almost argue that the people that are furthest in this country, black people that are furthest in this country in terms of their careers and their jobs and all of the rest of it, I mean jobs, not necessarily businesses, are the people that have outfitted as white people best.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Yeah?
Of course.
So for me, I was just kind of like, I'm a traveler. People know my Instagram because of travel. Do you know what it feels like to choose your travel destinations based on racism?
It's true, bruv.
Like Croatia, too close to Russia. Australia, forget about it. Like there's certain places where I'm just not going.
Bruv.
Trav,
you know
you spoke about something in your thing the other day about putting your hood up.
Listen, yeah, I booked an acting job, yeah? So imagine I've gone to an audition and all I want to do is bag the role. I find out they're shooting the role in Prague. So now I get the phone call from our agent, yeah, you got it, congrats. I'm like, oh, 6, like, yeah, so you fly to Prague on Friday. I'm now thinking, what's Prague saying for the man them though?
Mad.
Yeah.
Them considerations are real though, bruv. Real. Like that, I'm not going to say the group, but I used to do a little bit of traveling with a dance group to film and stuff. And we were doing a show. I'm going to forget the country now. I don't think it was Latvia. I think Latvia was legit. There was another one around that side. So we pulled up as we did, because I did a few shows with them. So like I had it in my mind. I knew exactly how everything was going to go. We're going to reach. Everyone's going to be like, oh my God. And then we're going to go hotel, change, and then just parties. Then man perform, more parties, and then we leave. We got to this place, bruv. Got to the hotel. Cool. Everyone's bagged off. We're getting ready to head out. And our guide is like, no. I was like, what? They were like, no.
Say, where was this?
I cannot remember which country, bruv.
Okay.
It's Eastern Europe. Yeah, Eastern Europe sides. But I don't want to say it was Latvia because I swear Latvia was lit. But that's the one that keeps popping in my head, but I don't think it was. So, so then we got to the hotel. We went to the bar, quick drink. Everyone's like, ready. We want to roll out. And the guy was just like, no. We're not leaving the hotel. Like, this place, we don't leave.
Mad.
And he didn't even say it, but everyone knew.
You knew the vibe.
Oh, cool. This is one of those places. Okay. And I was just like, man, imagine. Like, it was so deep that we didn't even have to say it to each other. We just knew.
Yeah, you knew.
Oh, cool. Yeah. This area is not one of those countries. Okay, cool. This is more one of the calm ones. And we just chill in the hotel the whole time. Cool.
Do you know what's sad about this, yeah? That these conversations are a bonding experience for people.
Oh, bro.
And art and just things have been built on this nuanced bonding experience that we go through. Like, and the thing is, and I don't know how often this pops up in you guys' heads, but I'm not actually black, right? I'm Malaysian Indian, but I feel I've been adopted to an extent and given license to be part of these conversations, and I'm forever grateful for that, because my experience has been similar. Because people that are not ethnic don't see a difference. Do you know what I mean? And just honing in on those experiences. Like, I ride a Vespa, right? A little 125cc Vespa around London. I have to go into central London a lot of the time. And these have just made me think how many experiences, how many inner feelings I navigate that I normalize when really I should be challenging to undo. Like, for example, sometimes when I'm unlocking my Vespa and I'm surrounded by white people, I think I'm stealing it.
Mad.
That's the thought. That's it. Like, do I look like I'm stealing my own bike? Am I making them uncomfortable for unlocking my own bike? And it's just, you know, and so many of these add up over a period of time that we normalize it, and like, that's just it's fucked.
You know what the thing is? I can guarantee
Sorry.
everybody's been into a shop. I can guarantee everybody's been into a shop
Yeah.
and felt guilty when they were not stealing anything because of like
Bruv.
I guarantee exactly. Just by everybody
try and walk out real legit as clean
Bruv.
cut as
Yeah.
possible to avoid.
with your hands up. Walk out with your hands up.
Yeah,
Like,
you know what? Yeah,
overcompensate.
it's not even that. I'll tell you the one. Yeah, this is the one that used to get me. But the thing that pissed me off the most about it is I was already a man when I realized. So I had to do it as a man and just think, you know what, Raggo, this is me now, innit? Sometimes I'm wearing a hood. I decided to wear one today. It was conscious. But like sometimes I'm just unconsciously or subconsciously wearing a hood. Maybe my head's cold. I'm bored. Whatever the reason may be. Maybe it's just comfortable. I love hoods. They make me comfortable. I walk in a shop and you know it's like an unwritten rule. Yeah, no hoods on in the shop. That rule in itself is invented for black people. And I'll tell you why. Because in my area, there's a very high Muslim population, bruv. And yeah, they went through a moment, but no one says, oh, excuse me, madam, like you have to take your hijab off in the shop. Like, that's not a thing. Yet you can see less of her face than you can see of mine. So it doesn't matter what, bruv, the excuses I've heard, oh, so your face can be seen on the camera. I said, rude boy, the next Muslim woman that comes in this shop, tell her to take off her hijab and I will happily take my hood off and continue to shop because it's ridiculous. You can see there's only one person in this shop with a hood on. It's me, bruv.
You know what the funny thing is? Like at one stage, I remember, and I promise you, like, I remember being afraid to have children because this is going to sound weird and I'm going to have to rephrase the sentence. I always do. But being afraid to have children based on the fact that I cannot control that their skin color will be the same as mine, right? And not that I don't want to have black children. It's the fact that I feel like if I have any children, I have to protect them against their own skin color. So, and this is why moving to Colombia was something that I had to do, because based on the fact that over there, crime rates might be higher, for example, yeah, but everybody can get it, yeah? It's because of poverty.
Yeah,
It's because of poverty. So therefore, any child, any mother, any parent, any father, has the same issue, has the same problem, is fighting the same battle with their children. So my children are not more likely to end up on the wrong side of something.
Anybody can get it.
That's what I'm saying, bro. I just want my kids to have different problems. That's why I say it, bro.
But you know what? Here's another thing, right? Because you don't realize that we also internalize some of these views about ourselves.
100%.
Like, look at, for example, let's say if a group of 4 black guys are walking towards you versus a group of 4 white guys, right? Now, this might be myself revealing my own mindset, and you might be like, right, I don't feel like that. But a group of 4 white guys does not intimidate me at all. And that sounds completely mad, right? And I say it doesn't intimidate me, but it didn't intimidate me, right? Before I got into boxing and, you know, my views of man-to-man combat is very different now. But at that point, just by growing up in this society, I would not look at 4 white guys and be scared, but I'd look at 4 black guys and be absolutely fearing for my life.
But that's because of the media though, bruv.
No, it is. But I'm black. I've internalized this. So for me to look at my own self and feel that type of disconnect, the level of how much the whole of society has consumed everything else, insane.
But then at the same time, then we go full circle and we say, doesn't that give credence to why white people feel like that?
No,
Oh,
no, no, no,
absolutely.
no, 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 no,
Absolutely.
no, no, no way, no
You
way,
don't
no
think
way,
so?
no, no, no. White people
If,
feel.
hold on, Shay. I just want to get the question
Oh,
correct.
go.
Yeah?
Yeah.
If me as a black man is consuming the same media that
Oh,
white
right.
people are consuming,
Yeah,
and thinking X equals Y,
yeah.
how can I then ask you why you believe Y when I believe Y after watching the same images you
Yeah.
look at?
I feel like I misunderstood what you had said. I do agree, but I don't agree with it being true. But I do agree with with both the black person and the white counterpart for falling for the same trick. But yes, nonsense.
You know what's crazy? I went through a period of looking for work. No word of a lie. I swear to God, no word of a lie. Yeah, 6 months. 6 months. I'm like, you know what? Get my ass a job, right? Sort some stuff out. I'm applying. 6 months. I changed my CV 10 times. I pay for my CV to go and get looked at. It comes back pretty much exactly the same by someone that went to Harvard and does CVs. All of that stuff I changed. Something said to me, you know what? Change your first name to your middle name. Yeah? Change Kasai Fulani to Antonio Fulani.
Mm-hmm.
Instantly, I promise you, I swear to God, and I've actually got the things in my inbox, offer after offer after interview after interview after X, Y, and Z. The only thing that changed was the name. Yeah? And if you listen to it, even audibly, Kasai Fulani sounds more African, whereas something like Antonio Fulani, even the Fulani sounds Italian.
Yeah, it starts to sound Italian, yeah.
Yeah,
You know
so
what,
it's gone.
No, I mean, land on your point, because there's a lot of thoughts about to come out.
No, that was it.
Yeah, that shit saddens the fuck out of my soul, man. And like, just listening to what we've been talking about, like my brain just constantly, I move and I live from a place of hope all the time. So I'm always synthesizing, like, what's the problem and what's the potential solutions? And I'm looking at the future and trying to be part of this change-making team, right? I'm like, systemic oppression, to undo that or to rewrite that or to rebuild that is one fucking crazy ass marathon, right? Like, we understand that. Like, work needs to be done on the inside as well as on the ground. But then at the same time, going back to what you were saying, Trav, about how we've internalized these certain narratives, like that's about consciousness change, right? And that is a totally different ballgame. And in my mind, consciousness change is about the community themselves working to change the narratives that are just limiting fucking growth. If the same narratives are being perpetuated through art, like television, movies, music is so powerful, right? And then also that's carried out into the micros, all the little isms, all the little conversations, all of this shit is just adding to the same thing. It's like, I honestly feel it's our fucking business to rewrite the narratives through what we're pushing out, through the conversations we're having, through fucking spotlighting, floodlighting new role models, widening the lens of possibility. Because if the lens of possibility stays blinkered, we're just here all the time. You know what I mean?
It's true.
It's like it's a lot of work to do, but
you mentioned music, but record labels and they push artists into a certain direction. So these guys, you know what I mean? They know that if this pops like this, then I'm gonna make money. So they keep giving them what they want.
You know what? It's a combination of money, yeah, and control. Like, I don't feel like anything's in isolation. I know money does make the world go round, but
when you're dealing with people that don't have money, they're gonna be a bit easier to sway with money.
Going back to the survival story again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because do you know what the funniest thing for me right now? I said funny. It's not even funny, but the thing that I guess is standing out to me right now, and you can notice it, I guess, with Stormzy. Stormzy is kind of like a national treasure, like in both the black and white community, and he's featured on like Tion Wayne's newest song. And that song is not like a particularly profound song in terms of it being like anti-unity or anything like that. But I just feel like
The stereotype.
With what's happening right now in the community versus the stereotype and the basic level of stupidity that is echoed in that music, which is it's just mindless music. You couldn't have a greater contrast, and he couldn't have become a part of a more unrelated track, damaging track. And I don't feel like anyone's actually pulling him up for it. But what I'm saying is, at a time like this, when you have someone who's like your Black national treasure, like Stormzy, being a part of music like that, it just shows you how divided the community is. And
so
how
I haven't thought about this. I haven't thought about this yet, yeah. But then you have the argument in terms of art and authenticity.
That's what I was gonna get to.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Go on, Rubes.
Okay, so this conversation about art has been one that's been popping up in my circles for a little while. Yeah, there is, like, art should be true, right? And it's about authenticity, and it's about you telling your story. But I don't think we can ignore the fact that with every action, there are consequences. And what is the balance that you want to level up with? Do you want to speak your pain, which could, in theory, pass out trauma, right? And unlock more people to speak about trauma without anyone trying to change it? Or do you want to use the position you have to just be a bit more critical about the work you're doing and just look at the bigger progressive picture? I don't know, man.
Okay. So from an artistic point of view, I've always seen art as two different things. I've seen as art as either a way to express or a way to communicate, right? They can be one and the same, but either a way to express or a way to communicate, right? So if me as an artist feel a particular way and I use art as my outlet, and it resonates with people because they feel the same way or they have the same struggle, should I not put it out based on the fact that on the other side of things, it may be traumatic for other people? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
at the moment,
that's the frustrating.
It's almost the kind of like it's the double-edged sword almost.
It is. I think for me, what it is it's a timing thing. I 100% agree that art is all things. You can summarize it to be those two things, but I feel like there's probably more stems it can break off into. But it is not a simple thing. But this is where I'm going back to the fact of the Black community not having that leadership, is that at a time like this, it needs to be one thing. It needs to be serving the purpose.
But I mean, to be fair to Stormzy though, I think he's just a victim of poor timing.
No, he is. It's not his fault. The thing is, if this was not happening, I'll be on that, and I'll also be like, Chip, where the hell is this reply, bro? This is you he's talking about. But
that's right.
It's not the timing for that. But this is what I'm saying. If we had a level of leadership, because the thing is, the leadership is just general leadership. It's not like, we need.
What does leadership look like in this era? Because we gotta be real here. How are we gonna get on the same page in regards to leadership in 2020, bro?
It's not about no. It's not. I don't think it's so much about us getting on the same page. It's having pages to choose from. I don't feel like there's defined enough paths of thinking for the Black community. Like, it's not like it's a 1 in 5 situation where, well, you either follow Dave or you follow Akala or you follow Stormzy or you follow blah blah. I don't feel like that's how it's presented.
You know what?
Also, there's no females.
You know what?
So
like,
what is
to answer your question, Trev? Like I remember reading this book. It's by Malcolm something. I can't remember. It's about the
X. It's X, bro. It's X.
No.
That girl sounds like.
But the idea was that what came out of it is leadership is about influence. Yeah, there's nothing more, nothing less. It's not a form of leadership that you can bring to me that doesn't involve influence.
Yeah.
Right. So then you're looking at levels of leadership. I think one of the things in our community is that it's so fractured, is a trust thing. Because I can guarantee, going back to this reparations thing, doesn't matter who you gave the money to be able to say, we are going to lead you. There's people turning around and say, that pastor, boy, this money ain't going into the church. Like, there's people saying, do you understand what I'm saying? There's people saying, we're giving him his money, but we're not seeing this. And do you know what's so weird is Travis has a skit based on a pastor that teaches the money that people give him from his
like Bishop Greenteeth.
Mad. Mad.
So it's almost
That
kind of like
Bishop Green teeth shit.
it's almost kind of like even when you go down to that level, it's like it's so much deeper because I'm kind of like I can't see who is the person. My friend asked me that yesterday. He's like, who is the person that represents leadership? Like, who do we have? Like, apparently, I don't know, but there's apparently someone that you guys are gonna know called Killer Mike.
Oh, I know Killer Mike. Yeah, Killer Mike's solid. Yeah.
I'm out of touch. Yeah.
No, but would you look to an American?
No. He was saying basically they have, but who is our version?
Oh, right.
Who is
But
our
what
person?
Killer? Have you not seen the Killer Mike's recent CNN or TV appearance? I honestly think that those ideas transcend location. To be honest,
I agree. I agree.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's good ideas that are usable over here, regardless of where you are.
Okay.
Yeah, but at the same time, leadership again, is he gonna have the same connection with our youth? No,
it's not. Because the thing is, he does have a good following based on his music, etc. But then that music doesn't sound like ours, and the reason why our music would connect is because of the locality and that nuance.
Stormzy said "fuck Boris," and then now man are chanting "fuck Boris." It's different. That's influence here.
Yeah. But then even back to your point, Cass, about influence and music and egos, a few different points you touched on, and it's something that also was touched on in your video, Trav, as well. Was like, and this is what I mentioned before we got on the call, Cass, was like, I think because we don't have that leadership, people are forgetting their station. They're forgetting their doctrine. They're forgetting their art. They're forgetting what they are. And so I've seen music artists who have big followings speaking out on this current situation and almost taking a stance and influential spoken position on behalf of the Black community and saying things that are unvalidated and make no sense and don't represent us and are backwards.
Tiny Temper, for example.
Tiny Temper. And because he didn't mention him, I was like, I swear this is Tiny. I know this is Tiny.
Whoa. What did he say?
He said some dumbass stuff about
how can anybody love us if we don't love ourselves?
Okay.
And Cass, this is what I was saying. Yeah, it's mad in one sense when you're when you're thinking of the events that has transpired transpired, and then he said this based on what has transpired. But then it gets madder still when you know that the person saying it is not in a Black relationship. And then you're just like, but bruv, I don't understand what you're saying. There's so many levels.
Thing is, I hear that about the relationship thing. I feel like,
and this is a big problem for me as well.
Because I understand what you're saying, but if he made sense, would that come into it?
I feel like it does. I feel like part of the issue is there's a lot of people trying to role model and not taking into consideration every single part of the puzzle.
If I understand correctly, it's almost like saying it's like Tiger Woods saying that.
Yeah, bruv. It don't make sense. Like, I totally get it. And the thing is, everybody has their lane. He's an influential musician. Yeah, he has music he can be making that can put change through on his level. But what he needs to understand is when you have a platform like that, you need to pass it on to people who are doctors in the field. Don't just start talking.
Yeah.
It don't make sense.
Yeah, it's not a case of limited to your profession, but Akala's a rapper, but
but he's a political speaker. He's a political speaker within his music. Same as Dave.
That's right.
Dave could have come on there and chatted hella shit, and I'll be like, you know what? I don't agree with Dave's opinion, but what I would not have said is that Dave should not be speaking.
Agreed.
Because that's what he does on music, and that's what he does. Or that's what he's decided to do outside.
The only thing I would say in that, and again, I might be out of turn because I'm just thinking out loud, but then it's almost kind of like if you need to be qualified to speak in terms of if your struggle doesn't qualify you enough to speak, if that makes sense, then what does? Because it's almost kind of like we could ask the same question about here. Why would anybody be listening to us? Because we're not.
Of course, but I feel.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Nobody's listening anyway.
My thing is
that was too easy.
I like that one.
Go on, Travis. I got a thought after you, though.
Bloody hell, I think I forgot what I was going to say.
You slipped it.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
while your cogs
Right.
are going, like this is starting to make me question the idea or the reliance on leadership itself, because everyone who gets up to say something is basically a human being that's going to be flawed at some level, right? And
Of
I think
course.
part of the problem is waiting for people to step up. And I wonder if a culture around critical independent thinking would be more of a solution than waiting for someone to lead.
All right. So this is my problem
That
with
might be
that.
too utopian, but
I get it, but
think
what I
big,
would
right?
say is, if let's say for example, we all have like a 10% mistake probability, you're just creating more 10% than one person who you're able to correct. Like one person, and it doesn't have to be one person, but basically the reason why you have leaders is because that is the funnel for more educated people to inform. So they're consulted. It's not like they're just out here thinking on behalf of everybody else. No, they should have a structure and a team in place, much like a president does, much like a prime minister does, where people actually who simply think about these things long term, short term, inside, outside, financially,
Also, there are
logistically.
different forms of leadership. So, like, you can still have a democracy with it, but have a leader.
Like, for example, Barack Obama wasn't out here representing just himself. You understand what I'm saying? So that can exist for us, but you just need to have, I personally believe, more control over the final end product, because it's not always going to be right. But the more control you can have and the more brains you can put into one funnel, the better the end result should be.
I want to ask this question before we get to like a 2-hour mark and whatnot. Yeah. And then kind of in closing, like, what does progressive change look like to you guys at the moment? What's the step that you want to see after what you're seeing at the moment?
What's the next step?
See, it's really hard to get to that conversation just because I feel like we're in uncharted territory right now. Like, we've got the world's attention and everybody's having the same conversation. It's hard to get to the road to equality. I don't know what the next step is, but I like where this is going right now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
Certainly.
I think we have to just continue in this direction, staying together, staying loud, staying vocal, and not allowing the moment to pass because something else has kind of just caught our attention. This has to be the focus for a strong few years, man. Like, a real dig needs to be done here.
You know what? I think I know what my answer is. I'm not going to say it's the most important thing, but I think off the top of my head, as an answer, I have one, and I think it will make a difference immediately, and that is for Black art to be more considered and more uplifting, because at present, I think we've given what appears to be young Black men free license to do and say whatever, as if it has no effect on our community. And it does definitely have a negative effect, as well as a positive effect, because yes, having grime, having drill, having whatever types of music is an outlet, and it's a release of your trauma, and it also allows people in similar situations to release. But there's no doubt in my mind that those types of energies also recreate themselves. And we're at a point in time where we actually can't really afford to allow certain things to be acceptable as popular music. They should always have their space to exist, but I just don't see the same level of these things existing in other communities, in other ethnicities that aren't exact replications of ours, and trying to
there's no accountability at the moment.
Yeah, there's none.
Yeah.
There's none. You can put gang violence on records and call women anyhow and call your brethren anyhow, and it's just okay because it's art.
Yeah.
And it's not, and I'm not saying that, oh yeah, like it shouldn't be okay and it should be policed. what I'm saying is it shouldn't be popularized as the way it is. Like that's like our main genres of music over here is like drill, which is basically murder music. And then everything kind of falls after that. Yes, the sound of the youth, I totally get that. And I understand that there's things that they need to express through their life. But how it's being allowed to be controlled by the music industry and popularized only sets us back. Because that is the genre of music that is informing our youth. That's guiding their culture. And their culture then creates their lives, their relationships with each other, and thus our community for them.
Ribs.
I can't co-sign that more, bro. Like, I am totally in agreement with that, bro. Like, with all my fucking soul as an artist and a creator myself. I would say, like, also echoing what Travis said, like, we're in the midst of just total newness unfolding, like, every second. And so I haven't got a clear answer yet. But I think what an idea would be to adopt in the present moment, and what I'm going to do is, the fact that there's so much attention on this, I think the wisest thing for me to do is constantly signpost anyone that wants to learn towards the richest, most valuable sources of knowledge. So the back catalogue of work of Black writers and filmmakers that know their shit and have been chatting their shit in the ether for the longest, because it's all there. So I'm going to signpost people and myself there, learn and learn and learn and learn, while formulate the wisest things we can do moving forward. Going back to what you were saying, making art that is progressive and just really trying to reshape fucking boring narratives that aren't progressive, man. Those two things in tandem.
You know, I'm going to end by saying that for me, the next steps looks like what we're doing now. It's more conversation, it's more catharsis, it's more education for everyone. Like right now, for example, there's a support Black businesses thing, and I remember speaking to Trav on your radio show, and my thing was at the time, and even to a degree now, my thing was never support Black businesses, it was support good artifacts. And I feel like if you ran with a narrative that just said support Black businesses or support Black music, it allowed people to get away with making lousy shit.
100%.
You know that, bro.
That's word.
So again, education is what changes that. Competition is good for us. Whilst I still have the energy, I kind of want to make sure that at least the people that are around me are getting the right message, rather than self-teaching themselves some shit.
Listening to Tiny fucking Temper.
I understand you had the best intentions, but listening to Tiny Temper is not the way. Like, so it's that, man. But bros, appreciate it, man. Like,
it's been real, man.
I reckon it's gonna be a part 1 and a part 2.
Just a quick thing. Like, even though you're going to potentially make it shorter, I think there was such depth and richness explored in this conversation that it would be a sad thing to not have it available.
I don't want to edit it.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so you're going to leave it as the full option to go out, right?
Leave it as the full option. That what I might just do is a part 1 and a part 2. So I might split it up into 2 different.
Yeah. Because people are invested, I think, now, or they will be. So yeah. Anyway, guys, much love, man. Stay safe.
Take it easy,
bro. I'll catch you on the other side, man.
Indeed, man.
Bless.
Bless.